everybody, Gina DeLuca here. Okay, well, I did a little bit of traveling over the holidays, got to see some family, so that was awesome, but I am back. I am ready to get back to painting, and let's do it. So, today I am going to be doing a straight pour, but I'm using a mix of Satin enamels and the DecoArt Americana Decor Metallics, which are cell makers. And then I have some of the this Little Piggy pigments, which should add some beautiful bling. The colors we are using for the background slash base coat, I have Amsterdam Phthalo Blue mixed with a bit of Titanium White. I have the Americana Decor Metallics by DecoArt in 24 karat gold. The Satin Enamel Americana Decor Satin Enamel in pure white that has been mixed with just a touch of this background color just to make those colors more homogeneous. This Little Piggy pigments we are using. I have Mermaid, Prehnite, don't know if I'm saying that correctly, Violet Rain, and my color, the one they named for me, Crescendo. Love this color, not just because they named it for me, but I do really enjoy that combo that it gives. Super cool pigment shifting color. These paints, so the paints, the satin enamel and the background color, let's start this way because they all have a little bit of a mix going here. This is 1 part paint, 2 parts Floetrol, and then that mixture is then thinned with some water. Sometimes I do a 90% water, 10% Floetrol mixture. I need to make a new mix and I just haven't done that, so I just did regular water. The 24 karat gold is mixed the same way, 1 paint, 2 Floetrol. The satin enamels. So I did 1 part satin enamel and then 1 part of regular paint. So there was some of the blue in there and some of the titanium white. So there are equal parts satin enamel and other paint. Whatever that other paint is, it doesn't matter. 50% of the satin enamel, 50% of other paint, and then consider that 1 part. And then it's 2 parts Floetrol to that. So basically a half part of satin enamel, a half part of another paint, 2 parts Floetrol. There's a true ratio for you. The pigments, first I mix the pigment with some Jasonia gloss varnish, just enough to get it wet and dispersed. And then I added Floetrol to that. So that is what we're working with. That is the recipes and the colors. The consistency, let's talk about that for a moment. The consistency that we're working with is about a 2 on my consistency scale. It is making a mound, but it disappears pretty quickly. I don't know if you can see that. It might be too dark. Maybe that'll be better. But it is making a mound. It just disappears quickly. Nice, thin, even stream off of your stick. If it is not coming off evenly, it has not been mixed enough. You need to keep on mixing because you have different consistencies in your cup. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute, but if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards, and each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube that gives you all of the information that you need, the exact paint brand, color, consistency, all of that good stuff. Of course, the technique, all of the things I can't fit onto a card. This is a picture of the painting in that video. This box has a tip for this particular technique. And here at the bottom, you have the color palette that was used in this painting. And these two boxes can be used as the basis of a 2-color palette. You can build off of those colors or just use those two alone. Sometimes simple is beautiful. And there are 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use some of the colors, use all of the colors, mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more combinations than you could ever paint in a lifetime. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also at amazon.com. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of paint in my cup. I like to make sure I have enough for my pour, so I put about 2 ounces in there. And there should be some left over after covering the canvas to go on top, if I measure correctly. If you're wondering how to decide how much paint goes on your canvas, length times width, and this is in American measurements, so we're talking inches here. Length times width will give you your square inches, and then divide that number by 28, and that is how many ounces you will need. Length times width divided by 28. There you go. You want to be extra safe, especially if you're using a big canvas. Divide it by 24 instead. That will give you some extra room. But for a smaller canvas, 28 works just fine. I like to lay down a base coat because I want my paints to slide around easily. First of all. Second, something has to hit the canvas first, and if you don't have a base coat, it's going to be your poured paint, and sometimes very cool things happen on the edges of your puddle. And if you do not have a base coat, the paint will just roll over top of itself as what is on the edge will stick to the canvas. And then the center of your puddle will roll over top of that. So laying down a base coat gives me more options when it comes to my composition. If I decide that I want to keep the edge of my pour and have some negative space, I can do that. All right, my base coat is down and I'm going to put some paint in a cup. Always check your consistency before putting your paint in the cup. The sauce can thicken upon standing. So I'm going to start with the 24 karat gold. I'm going to pour it from up high. I want it to sink. I like when they churn, cool things happen. Okay, and I'm going to do the Violet Rain next. Again, pouring from up high. Now the Satin Enamel blend. This is Mermaid, I believe. Crescendo. the Prehnite and then what is left in my cup on top. Hi, Satchmo. Satchmo says hi. Okay, I'm going to give this base coat a quick torch with old Bernie 2 times here. He never likes the first shot, so that's his nickname. I always try to pop the bubbles before pouring because they will just come up through your pour. I'm gonna grab this cat hair, probably. It snows cat hair in this house. But if you pop the bubbles now, they won't pop up through your pour. This is the reason why I use a color in my base coat that's in my painting. If I had white base coat and no white in the painting, I could wind up with tiny little white cells and that would just drive me crazy. So I like to troubleshoot before there's trouble. All right, I am going to pour. Actually, I'm going to get close. I don't want a lot more blending. I'm pouring close and quickly. Usually I pour from a little higher up, and that gives me a lot more blending and churning on the canvas. For my Fibonacci's, I like to have at least 1.5 spins. The paint that's at the bottom of the cup is going to have some contrast. And I like 1.5 spins to accentuate that. Okay, perfect. That is a fine Fibonacci. Let me just recenter it. This canvas is level to the table, but the spinner is not level. So I kind of have to keep it moving as I allow these parts to develop. Now see, when I was saying some of the cool stuff happens on the edge, if you really liked this, you could just stretch this way and keep all of that. So typically the satin enamels and the DecoArt Metallics are great cell makers. These were pretty old jars, and sometimes when I get to the end of the jar, it doesn't have the same oomph. So if these were fresh jars, this would be covered in cells. But that wasn't necessarily what I was going for. I'm most interested in keeping that Fibonacci in the center. That is going to be my focal point. Whatever else happens, that's my jam right there. So that is what is important to me in this particular composition, what I am going for, what I want to happen. So popping these bubbles, particularly when you are using these DecoArt paints or any matte paint up against a glossy paint, the matte paints have a hydrophobic effect, and that means that it is going to push away the other paints, the glossy paints. Think of it like when you're wearing matte makeup and it's pushing the shiny away. So if you pop a bubble that is in a layer underneath, it comes up and it brings a little bit of paint with it. Like all of these little cells right here, these little tiny cells, as I let it sit, they will continue to grow. This is how you get boulder cells. If I were to stretch this right away, I would still get cells. They would all be pretty uniform, like these are. People call these, you know, pearl cells. I call them pop-up cells. But if you allow them to sit before you stretch, then you can really maximize the 3D and like some of the very cool effects that you can get with these kinds of cells. There's like layers upon layers inside of some of them. And you'll start to be able to tell what colors are lying underneath. So obviously, as I started popping these bubbles, there was a band of this, you know, kind of a satin enamel blend in here. And there's also that band of gold. So if I see some of those popping up in a pattern, then I know that it's sitting under there. And if I'm patient, those bubbles will continue to rise up. I can continue to pop them and be patient and let this paint puddle percolate so we can maximize our cell action. This is going to be a very blingy painting. It's probably hard to tell from that angle, but there is bling. All right, I think I'm about ready to give this a twirl. Plenty of cells in there to work with. Let me just double check that my spiral is centered. All right. I will give this a twirl. Actually, I'm gonna tilt my cup on its side, my original pouring cup. I may need a little extra love on these corners. And you don't have to spin this fast. This does not need to be flinging on your walls. My drip edge typically does not go past the corners. So it is a misconception that you need to fling this hard. 'Tis not the case. It will get there. If you have ever had a painting that was not level. You know how much it can change over time. So patience is absolutely your friend in this medium, in any medium, but especially this one. Okay. I think I want just a little bit more. I'm keeping an eye on this. I don't want to lose this, but I don't mind losing some of well, how are we looking? Okay, I think that might be it. I've got like some of the Crescendo cells going on here. Hopefully. Maybe I shouldn't have done that last spin. Did I do it one too many times? Okay, so I'm gonna let this sit and do what it's gonna do, and I'm gonna bring you in for a close-up back in a few. Okay, here it is. Don't think it's going to change anymore until it dries. Oh, that dark part is coming out very dark, but it's kind of a more of a plum color. That's looking much darker on camera than it is in person. All of these colors are looking very different on camera, but I think too, once this dries, if you've used those pigments before, you know how much they can change over time. And I can't really get a good angle to show you these colors just yet, I think. Unfortunately, it's going to have to wait till it's dry to get the full effect. But there it is. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed. Please do like, share, and subscribe and all that good stuff. Make sure you click that description, or click the bell next to the subscription button so that you receive notifications of all of the videos that are posted. You can see a little bit of that crescendo there. You have to catch it at just the right angle. Check out the description box below for links to my PayPal tip jar if you feel so inclined. All of the affiliates that DecoArt and the Fluid Art Company, where you can get the awesome This Little Piggy pigments. Also in the description box, you will find a link to my website, GinaDeLuca.net, where you can find my art and music and fluid art inspiration cards for sale. And you'll also find the link to our Facebook group. Go make some art. Join us there. Post your masterpieces. Ask your questions. Get some inspiration. A good time's had by most. It is the internet after all. But that is going to be it for me for today. I will be sure to show this once it's dried. And, well, that's it for me. I hope y'all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.